Feel the wrath of the goddess!
Hello Rivals fans and welcome back to the Rivals Report, the show that gets you up to speed on Rivals esports news in a nice, bite-sized package. My name is Diatonic and this is the Rivals Report number 21 for the week of October 20th, 2025. On this week's report, with Ignite Stage 2 done and dusted, we're turning our attention towards DreamHack Atlanta and the Grand Finals LAN tournament. We've got our first round of pre-LAN coverage for you, introducing the competitors from NA and Asia. The Fnatic Assembled Invitational concluded over in EMEA last week with a LAN matchup in London. Find out what went down and who came out on top. Plus, a special charity Daredevil tournament took place last week to celebrate the newest hero's release. You don't want to miss our highlights from the event. And an exhibition showcase featuring content creators from across the net just took place at TwitchCon. Find out who played, what was at stake, and who walked away the victors. Well, the next Rivals LAN tournament and the final Ignite event of the year is just around the corner. But before the Grand Finals kick off at DreamHack Atlanta, we're here to bring you up to speed on the 12 teams descending on Atlanta from around the world. In our first round of pre-LAN coverage, we're doing a deep dive on the 6 teams joining the fray from the Americas and Asia regions. Let's start with the most recently invited teams and talk about the Americas region. And what better place to begin our team profiles than with the newly crowned Stage 2 Americas champions, 100 Thieves. The 100 Thieves organization joined the fray all the way back in March when they hired the at-the-time in-game faction known as Mutants. They had some early successes as Mutants, winning both the Dawn of Legends pre-alpha playtest tournament and the Season 0 MRC. They became the Thieves just before the Marvel Rivals Invitational, which they'd go on to win as well. They ended Ignite Stage 1 as the runners-up, second only to Sentinels, and would go on to place third in the mid-season finals as well. This team has incredible synergy, having made very few roster moves since their first appearance as Mutants. They're a very versatile team and often find themselves on the winning side of clutch, high-stakes situations. They tend to struggle on the first map of any given series, often starting out in the hole, but they're able to swing the momentum their way even with the entire deck stacked against them. Next up are the runners-up of Stage 2 and another LAN returner squad in Envy. Similar to their counterparts in the Thieves, Envy have been competing in Rivals since the Marvel Rivals Invitational back in March, but have gone through a number of roster changes. A majority of their core is stabilized and been playing together since May, having only added Tap to the mix since then. This team has also dominated at multiple levels of competition, with numerous Rivals Fight Night and Night Shift wins, a third place finish in Stage 1, and runner-up finishes in both the mid-season finals and most recently Ignite Stage 2. Envy is a very resilient team, using losses as opportunities to download their opponent's strategies, and they've been known to make a mean lower bracket run. They're also draft phase machines, usually able to pinpoint the weakest links in their opponents and take them down. They can tend to get an early lead that slowly slips away from them as games progress, but they're a serious threat to any who cross their path. For the newcomers to LAN this time around, let's look at one of the most improved teams coming out of Stage 2, FlyQuest. Like their cohorts in 100 Thieves and Envy, FlyQuest have also been around since nearly the beginning, making their debut with a runner-up finish to 100 Thieves in the Marvel Rivals Invitational. They had a bit of a rough patch during Stage 1, making it to playoffs but being eliminated with an 0-2 record there. They'd go on to win the second season of the 10X Rebirth Circuit and the third season of the Vanguardian League, poising them for a huge run in Stage 2. They'd end that run in an impressive third place, falling victim to Envy in the lower bracket finals. They have one of the strongest backlines in all of NA, keeping them afloat in every fight, and they've got a great deal of map awareness and positioning to help them clutch up when it counts. They can tend to struggle when they're behind in the ult economy, and they have difficulty answering poke comps or teams that focus on their backline, but they've more than proven themselves a force to be reckoned with. And last but not least, to round out NA, let's talk about the other newcomer team in Dark Zero. DZ's entrance into Marvel Rivals came when they signed the faction known as Magnets, another top contender in the game's early days. But that initial core is mostly gone now, replaced with players from other teams such as Impunity, Velocity, Madara, and most recently hired in from Sentinels, Rymazing and Kurova, who made a huge impact in Ignite Stage 2. They had a disappointing finish in Stage 1, but battled back with this new roster to pick up some big wins all throughout Stage 2, carrying them to their first Rivals LAN tournament. They've got a visceral DPS line in Smash and Rymazing, maximizing the team's dueling potential and burst damage. They also have an incredibly consistent backline and know their way around an Adam Warlock comp thanks to Kurova. They do have some mixed results against top-ranked teams, and they can struggle to get out from under their opponent's map control, but the new additions to the team have made them a serious threat. And since that covers the NA participants, let's shift gears to the Asia region now and focus first on the Stage 2 champs Crazy Raccoon. Crazy Raccoon is a legendary Japanese esports org, and they've been competing in Rivals since Ignite Stage 1. A large chunk of their core was originally part of a faction called Legit L, and they've maintained a large part of that core since Stage 1, though they've recently added NX and Lastro to their ranks. They fell just short of making mid-season finals, being knocked out by Gen G in the lower bracket finals. Their Stage 2 run nearly ended in similar fashion, being sent down to the lower bracket early by Gen G, but they rallied back and defeated defending Stage 1 champs Reject in the grand finals. This team thrives on early aggression and is difficult to stop once they start building momentum. They can sometimes get blindsided themselves when facing an early aggressive team, and can have difficulty closing out longer games, but they've been consistently known as one of the top teams in Asia for a reason. And for our final team this week, let's look at the Stage 2 runners-up, Reject. Their first appearance in a Rivals tournament, like many others, was during the Marvel Rivals Invitational, but they've been an Asia mainstay ever since. They ascended to the throne of Stage 1 champions in a nail-biter of a grand finals against Gen G, but somewhat underperformed at the mid-season finals, being taken down by Chinese team OUG. They added some new players to the team in Marvel and Izayaki before Stage 2 started, and said goodbye to strategist Mocha. And the adjustments helped carry them to a runner-up finish against Crazy Raccoon and their second Rivals LAN invite. They're a very versatile team, capable of adjusting on the fly and adapting to their opponent's win conditions, and generally play well when the pressure is mounting. They're far less comfortable when they're not dictating the tempo of the match, and can get stunned by off-meta comps or surprise picks, but they've consistently been a top performer in Asia.
I don't care, cause we will win.
So 6 teams down and 6 more remain in our lead up to the Grand Finals tournament. We'll be back next week with a look at the EMEA, OCE, and China qualifiers, so be sure to subscribe so you don't miss that coverage. And be sure to follow me on other platforms such as X and TikTok, as we'll be at DreamHack Atlanta bringing you first-hand coverage of the event all weekend long. Last week on the Rivals Report, we brought you coverage of the group stage of Fnatic Assembled, a small invitational tournament taking place in EMEA and run by legendary Esports org Fnatic. It involves some familiar faces including Insomnia, Foot Esports, and OG Seed, all vying to survive the group stage and make it to LAN at the Red Bull Gaming Sphere in London. The third place match between Fnatic and OG wasn't streamed as far as we're able to tell, but OG Seed would take the win 2-0 in that match. However, the grand finals of the tournament were streamed and in epic fashion. Ignite caster Tetcher and former MRC commentator Spartan Tano were tapped to take the booth and descended on London to call the match in person. We introduced them on last week's report, but this match was to be settled between Ignite Stage 2 competitors Foot Esports and Final Dance, a conglomerate team combining players from several other Ignite caliber squads, meaning we were essentially in for an Ignite level match here, and they did not disappoint. It was clear we had a fight on our hands here from the very first map. Celestial Husk was a tug of war between these two teams, but Last Dance would grab the first map after taking it all the way to point 3. But they weren't able to carry that opening victory into early momentum, as the map 1 loss would rally Foot Esports to winning maps back to back to back. In the blink of an eye, Foot had taken Symbiotic Surface, Midtown, and Central Park, putting them on match and tournament point before Last Dance even realized what was happening. Not wanting Krakoa to be their Last Dance pulled it together and managed to lock in a shutout on map 5 and keep their series hopes alive. Still holding on to a 3-2 win, Foot took us to Yggdrasil Path next, a comfort pick for many competitive teams, and this would be a knockdown, drag-out fight between these two teams. Final Dance was starting to ride the wave of momentum here, defeating Foot Esports and evening the score and taking us to that all-important map 7. And it all came down to this. In the heart of London on LAN, Foot and Final Dance prepped for one last showdown, this time some convergence action on Hall of Dajalia. And if you wanted a battle on this last map between these teams, you got a war instead. Final Dance were on the attack first, able to push to the final room of the map, but after a lengthy battle of attrition, Foot managed to keep the door to victory open, stopping FD short of the last checkpoint. But while they were able to wedge the door open, Final Dance would keep Foot from walking through. Foot built up quite a time bank for themselves, even getting a miracle time refresh after hitting checkpoint 2 in overtime. But Final Dance would battle back and stop Foot just short for the win.
But they cannot maintain! GG! And Final Dance are able to take Fnatic Assembled!
And so, Fnatic Assembled draws to a close, with Final Dance being crowned the champions to a 5,000 viewer strong audience on the Marvel Rivals Twitch channel. And they're almost $3,000 richer for it too. This ended up being a very entertaining event and a great showcase of the mid-tier teams that have been rocking it over in the EMEA region. It's still not confirmed as of yet, but there's still the question of whether or not Fnatic is planning to re-enter the Rivals space with a permanent roster. Either way, the first Fnatic Assembled is in the books, and it's very doubtful that Last Dance have danced their last here. And the Rivals community has come together in the wake of Daredevil's release to put on a competitive show for a good cause. Orchestrated and streamed by Rivals streamer Team Captain, this event brings together Rivals pros and creators to help support SEA International, a philanthropic organization dedicated to ending preventable blindness. The Daredevil charity event takes place over 2 weeks, with the EMEA side playing last week and the Americas side taking place later this week. Ignite casters Tetcher and Got Moxie were in the booth to bring you all the EMEA action, and here's what went down. If you recall from a few Rivals reports ago, this tournament operates very similar to the Boger Bash format. 8 EMEA pros and content creators were designated as team captains, and they were pitted against one another in a Doom match, all forced to use Daredevil. Placements in the Doom match were used to determine draft order, then the captains one by one drafted each member of their team. Triple support comps were banned in this tournament, so captains had to think strategically of who to draft to fit the bill of more standard 2-2-2 comps. In addition, all teams are required to have one member playing Daredevil, putting further constraints and adding some additional challenges to the team building process. Many of the players participating in the tournament stream their own POVs, and combining all those into separate streams of the main broadcast on Team Captain's channel, there were, at several points, more than a few thousand viewers tuning into the event. And this directly translated into a flurry of donations, with the casters announcing they had racked up a couple $100 before the first match was even played. There was a groundswell of support throughout the entire tournament, and they ultimately ended up raising about $1,200 for SEA International. From the first match we got on broadcast, it was clear Team Craggy was going to be one of the contenders in this event. The team consisted of Craggy from Schmungus as captain, Navi's Crisis, Vertigo from Chopped, Baby Bat who played for Vice during Stage 2 of Ignite, Frankie Boxing of the former Dusty roster from all the way back in Stage 1, and Yigi, one of the many content creators in this tournament. They had a tough opening match against Team Y Andrew that they'd win, then drop to the lower bracket in their next match against Team Luke the Ninja. It would be a long path through the lower bracket, but they managed to make it all the way to the grand finals without dropping another map. And their opponents in grand finals would be none other than Team Luke the Ninja, led by the Twitch streamer of the same name. Luke drafted KQ43 and a Boohoo of OG Seed, Imperator from Foot Esports, Jassy, who played for Foxhound in Ignite Stage 2, and Twitch streamer Only Legs, who played with the faction Not OTPs back in Stage 1. Luke's team turned out to be absolute demons in this tournament, taking down Team Line Pro, Craggy, and Maddie, all without dropping a single map and landing them in grand finals from the upper bracket side. And so, Team Craggy would get their run-back opportunity in the grand finals, going head-to-head with Team Luke the Ninja yet again. Araco was up first, with Team Luke opening quick and aggressive. They weren't quite able to ride the momentum all the way to the end of the map, but they threw the gauntlet far enough to create an uphill battle for Team Craggy as they switched sides. Try as they might, but Craggy and crew weren't able to overcome the defensive onslaught, and they went up 1-0. Burnin' T'Challa was up next, potentially the closer for Team Luke as they started off with an incredibly strong first point capture. Team Craggy battled back hard on point 2, snagging almost 90% capture progress for themselves, but Team Luke were able to make the flip and took home the tournament. This was a beautiful effort by the competitive Rivals community to come together for some friendly competition and a very worthy cause. Kudos to all those who played, organized, and broadcasted this event, as it was quite a show to watch. But the Daredevil charity tournament isn't quite finished just yet. The Americas branch of the event will be played this coming Thursday, starting at 6 p.m. Eastern. You can tune in to Team Captain's Twitch channel to witness all the action, all hosted by Vaudable and myself. If you've got a few bucks to spare and want to take part, be sure to drop by the stream, say hi, and send in those donations. Links to both Team Captain's Twitch channel and SEA International's website are in the description. And finally this week, we're headed to San Diego for TwitchCon, a convention that brings together thousands of streamers and content creators to play games, work on content, and network. But among all those activities, they also held live sessions of Twitch Rivals, an event that brings together some of the platform's flagship streamers to compete in various games. They've held Marvel Rivals events before under the banner, but at the Twitch Rivals arena at the convention, they put on 3 separate exhibition matches with some familiar faces. This is Twitch Rivals Hard Mode featuring Marvel Rivals. There were 3 show matches for this event, with 36 content creators entering the fray. They did battle for a piece of the $70,000 prize pool available in each match and the coveted Twitch Rivals trophy. This event brought together some familiar faces like J3, Necros, Boger, TTK, FanFan, and so many more. And all hosted by a legendary lineup of Artie, Ashervok, Chelsea Bites, and Wavepunk, it was sure to be a show. The match between Swag and Silky was up first, with each matchup being played over 3 games. Team Silky started out strong, with Silky bringing some of his FaZe Clan prowess to drive his team to a Map 1 win on Celestial Husk. We stuck with domination for Map 2, moving to Hell's Heaven this time. Team Swag battled back and made this one competitive, but even after taking it all the way to point 3, Team Silky yet again picked up the win. Yggdrasil Path was the stage for the go-home map here, and Team Silky were looking silky smooth, locking in a full hold against Swag and company and winning the exhibition. The second match of the event was a heavy hitter. Team J3 versus Team Necros. J3's squad brought the likes of TTK, FanFan, and more, while Necros called on Boger and friends to do battle. This series was an absolute banger, one that would see Team J3 taking map 1 and Team Necros battling back to claim an extremely close map 2. But it had all come down to the final showdown on Yggdrasil Path, and they'd give us our money's worth as they'd need extra rounds to decide that Yggdrasil Path match. But the might of Team J3 was simply too much to handle, and we'd get an in-person L Necros here, as Team Necros would fall on the third map. And it was time for the last match of this event, with Team Abe and Team Foolish entering the fray. These teams traded wins on the first 2 maps of Celestial Husk and Araco, battling it out and taking both maps the distance. The pressure was mounting yet again here as these teams were ready to decide the matchup on Hall of Dajalia, the first time we'd get convergence this broadcast. It was a very low-scoring map, with Team Foolish holding Team Abe to only a single tick of progress on the first checkpoint. But that left Foolish and company with a straightforward layup to lock in their win. And that settles Twitch Rivals at TwitchCon, a well-produced and entertaining event celebrating the contributions of numerous content creators to this game and to Twitch as a whole. And not to mention the appearances of some Rivals pros like TTK, Nuck, and Vision. It was a blast, much like previous iterations of Twitch Rivals. And the exposure is great for the game as well, giving TwitchCon attendees a good idea of what the game can look like competitively, even with non-professional players in the driver's seat. Well, that's all for this week's Rivals Report. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on the latest in Marvel Rivals Esports. And be sure to follow me on other platforms including Twitch, X, and TikTok. I've been Diatonic, you've been amazing, and I'll see you in-game.